Hi there. My name is Steve Helms. I am documenting my building of this particular plywood boat designed by Philip Bolger, provided to me by H. Payson in the person of Dennis. This one's called a shoal runner. It's 17 feet long. I'm going to build it as an open boat with an outboard, probably a 25 horsepower outboard. I am not an experienced boat builder. I have built one other boat, having bought the book from Dynamite Payson and the Gloucester Light Dory, and it's out in the backyard. I'll show you that in a minute. But these are the plans that I got from Dennis, and he had asked me to document my construction. As compared to my first boat, which had a 25-page book with photographs, you're now looking at the specifications for this boat. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me since I've only built one other boat in my life. This actually is the boat that I built, the Gloucester Light Dory. It's sitting in the backyard. I will work with you along on this thing. My initial plan is to build all of the structural parts of the boat except for the hull, except for the plywood sections and the decking, to be able to transport all of the transverse pieces and all down to the coast, where I will then complete the boat. My first objective is going to be probably build from this particular plan of that particular cross section of the one of the main structural pieces of the boat. This is at station number 3, and the ship has a number of permanent structural members in it, but then there are also a number of temporary frames that will need to be built to form the hull over. I'll talk to you later. Most of the rest of this will just be photographs. Thanks. Correction, there will be one other video. I thought I would show you the shop that I'm going to build this in. This is where I do all my woodworking. I'm not a boat builder, but I am a woodworker. And I do have a table saw, and I do have a plane, and I do have a chop saw, and I do have a drill press, and I do have a little bitty bandsaw. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be making the boat with. My son has given me a power planer over there in one of those boxes. That's it. And I have a number of just regular hand tools that I use to do practically everything I'm doing. But you can see that this is not a specialized shop, but it is one that I think will be very adequate for building this boat. This is a model of the first boat that got me into the boat building business when I went on a tour to Nova Scotia. This is a Grand Banks Dory, and I've got a set of plans that I could actually build one of these from, but some friends of mine talked me out of that in favor of building the Gloucester Light Dory, which is in the lake out back. Okay, Dennis wanted me to document what I was doing, and I thought I'd do that with just pictures, but it looks like video is going to be necessary. In order to make the frame pieces, you have to lay them out according to the plans, and the only way that I can figure out how to do that is to do that on a large platform that's bigger than your largest frame. This one's about 7 feet by, what's that, 4 feet? And then I transfer the dimensions from the plans to the little bitty layout lines, which you can barely see here. And I successively laid out each of them, and then I've numbered the pieces because it is my plan to cut all these pieces, transport all this to the beach before I assemble everything. So it does appear that all that verbiage that Dennis wrote out is an effective way to do this, but I wish they'd have given you the dimensions, actually, of the individual parts and the shape of each frame, but that's not the way they do it with boats. What might not be totally obvious, it certainly wasn't to me, is that you've got to work off of a baseline that's on the plans. So I have set the top of this piece of material, the top edge of this piece of material, as my baseline, and then I have measured down from the baseline each of the dimensions down from the baseline that I come to in the plan, and then lay out each of the pieces. This particular piece is the lower section of number 4. I might also notice that I am slightly downsizing the material from the plans because I have chosen, rather than build frames, I'm going to go ahead, rather than build molds where they provide molds in the plans, I'm making frames in every one of the sections that add a little more strength to the boat, but I didn't think I needed to use that same dimension all the way across, so I'm downsizing one standard lumber size where it called for 1x4s, I'm doing 1x3s, and 1x3s I'm using 1x2s, and I think it will all work out in the wash. Because I know it was very difficult to see the lines on my layout, I have laid out the frame parts for stations 8, 7, and 6. They're together here, stacked together. I've already cut the notches for the bottom chines and for the weep holes. And then just for funsies, I've laid out the other bottom sections of stations 5, 4, 3, and 2. All of these aren't set up as frames in the plans, but I'm going to make them in frames, and you will notice if you're observant that they are a little downsized from the material sizes on the plans. But since I've got more frames than they've got in the specs, I figured that would work. There is some slight variance on the plans, with a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch of the dimensions of the stations of 8, 7, and 6. There may have been some great design purpose of that, but I've ignored it and I've made them all the same size. Okay, I thought this might be a good time for another video. I have spaced out and stabilized the frames such that they're all at the appropriate height, distance from each other. I didn't do that with the instructions they gave me. I don't have any cross members at the bottom stabilizing them because I'm playing with the unlevel floor here and I wasn't exactly sure how to do that. So I'll probably do that bottom section stabilizing before I get to the chines that go down in these notches, which form the upper side of the sides of the boat. I used just a flat piece of wood there to align down the center, to make sure that all of these centers are aligned and their spacing is appropriate. And when I came to this chine on the side, I used a straight solid piece until I got to where the boat was no longer the same distance wide, which is at 8, 7, 6 at frame number 5, 6 at frame 6. And then I little zigzag pattern in the end of that piece, and then I laminated it from there on down because I don't have a steamer, and I have been taught the method of just throwing your chines in the lake or the ocean for a week and let them soak up moisture, and then you can bend them even without a steamer. But I've done that before, but I decided not to try that this time. But we're moving along. The last thing to add to the total length of this thing is going to be the transom, which I'm again going to vary a little bit from the plans, and I'm going to use solid material rather than build it up out of plywood and frame. Report to you later. Okie doke, we have a update here you can see from this direction that I have added cross braces at the bottom, which was really necessary and is part of what they tell you in the instructions, but I didn't know better, so I didn't put them in, but they're in now, and they help stabilize everything so you can get on the chines in the proper orientation and keep everything square and plumb. I am just about ready to put on the plywood. I know that I showed you this last time, but I had to split those the very ends of the chines and to bend them because I don't have a steam machine. And everything else is pretty vanilla. I tapered the front of this edge here. I'm hoping that the 1/2-inch plywood will bend that much. My son was concerned that when he beats this thing that piece of the stem would dig into the sand, so we're trying to avoid that because the boat's pretty flat. There's about a 3-inch rise from the very flat part back here in the back to the bow. Everything went pretty much according to plan to this point. I'm going to reinforce some of my plywood reinforcing pieces. I used 1/4-inch plywood, which I had at the time, so I'm probably going to put 1/4-inch on both sides rather than just one side. And again, you will note that I have more frames than the plans call for. I figure if I was going to build a mold, I might as well go ahead and make a frame. Also, this is my transom, which I made out of solid wood rather than building it up with plywood and 1-bys. I did tongue and groove this thing on the table saw, and when I got through, I realized that I put the first sections of the bottom chines on before I put on the transom, measuring everything, and didn't allow for the thickness of the transom in the piece of the chine. So I'm about 1 1/4 inches short in the boat, but I don't think anybody will notice. And that's pretty much it for now. Next stage is I'm going to put on the bottom, which is 1/2 inch, and the sides, which are 3/8 inch. And I'm using Meranti because where I am, that's probably better than the fur that I would get, which might have some voids in it. They promised me that Meranti does not. Okay, what you see here is the first piece of plywood going on. I've got 3/8 inch Meranti, and although the plans call for 12-foot plywood, nobody has that. So this first sheet is an 8-foot sheet, and I've used most of the length of the 8-foot sheet up to factory edge on this back edge back here. And then my plan is I will run a 6-foot almost rectangular piece that will go back to about here, and then I'll have somewhere around a 4-foot piece to go on the back. That way I can get all of these side pieces out of 5 sheets of 3/8 inch Meranti. And then the bottom will be 2 sheets of 1/2 inch Meranti. Okay, you are looking at just about ready to have the fiberglass put on the boat. I have used automotive Bondo to fill in the nail holes and screw holes, all of which I countersunk pretty significantly. I put the wooden piece that went on the front of the boat was screwed on, and then rather than try and plane it down to where it would actually be flush with the wood, which would have gotten rid of most of the material, I planed it down relatively smooth, and then I bondoed the edges so that it'll be a nice fit with the boat. I'm going to be putting fiberglass on pretty much the whole boat, as this is 38-inch wide fiberglass, and I couldn't figure out a efficient way to do it with just the bottom and the seam sides and stuff. And besides, a friend of mine gave me the fiberglass, or the mat anyway. So we're going to see how this does. And today was supposed to be fiberglass day, but I'm tired, so I'll make tomorrow a fiberglass day. I hadn't done a video in a while, so this is kind of my current situation. I have pretty much finished all of the major carpentry on the boat. The last project that I did was these extensions of the combing. I made them into handrails such that I could use, my grandkids could use them. I made them out of 5/4 material, and I don't know whether you can tell or not from where, I guess over here maybe you can, some of it. These are laminated together 5/4 boards that I put on 1-inch thick strip at a time, attach it to the boat, and then glued on the next one. I used on that, on the upper areas of the boat, Type Bond 3 waterproof exterior / interior glue. It's a whole lot easier to work with than the Gorilla Glue that I used on the major structural parts of the boat, and it made it a little easier to work with. I'm getting ready to apply the first coat of varnish to the stained and what will be clear wood that's on this piece right here, and then I'm going to be painting the rest of it, or the grandchildren are. So I'll give you a report later.
It floats. Is it leaking?
I don't see any water. Glug, 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 glug.